All right, hello, and welcome to my new little desk setup in the study. It's been a while. If you don't know me, I'm Jen. I'm working on my first novel right now, and since I don't have that many writing updates, because I haven't been writing that much, I thought it'd be nice to jump into just some process videos. I'm always really curious about how other people do their writing. Like, are you a pantser? Are you a plotter? Are you a planter? Like, how do you go about world building? How do you use Scrivener? All of those things. And I thought I'd start out really easy and walk y'all through how I chart out my book timeline. So, not just the events that are happening in the book, but also the things that have happened prior to the plot. It's been really helpful for me to do all of this like backstory in a more linear fashion. So figure out what was happening when to each of the major characters and how old all the other characters were relative to them at the time, and what was happening with the other people's lives as well during the times of these various past events. I don't know if that made any sense, but it will hopefully make more sense when I jump into this video. But yeah, let's hop into it. So, how do I go about charting out the things that are happening with my plot and the past timelines? I am a corporate girly, if you don't know, and that means I use a lot of Excel. So naturally, I think about things in a more like spreadsheet fashion, and it's really worked for me to help me with keeping track of my timelines. Right now, I have everything in a Google Sheet, and I created like a sample version to just kind of walk you through my process. Maybe it'll work for you. I will maybe make like a basic template available and link it in my video description to see if it's helpful. But anyway, let's hop to it. All right, I've hit record. Let's see if this works. I am using something called Loom. I've never heard of it before, but let's see. So, this is a sample timeline that I put together just to show you how I do this. In the first column, I'll have the names of the various characters. In column B, I'll put in their birthdays. Mind you, these dates and years don't really matter. They're kind of placeholders. So Rose, who's the main character in my book, was not actually born on May 20th, 1072. Like that 1072 was just a placeholder to help me with the figuring out their age gaps. And then on these first two rows, I'll fill it out with different events that have happened and the dates that they've happened. And then I'll put formulas in this section, which will make more sense in a little bit, to calculate how old everyone was when this event happened. Okay, so the formula is equals the day of the event, parentheses, the day of the event, put a dollar sign in front of the 2 so that the row stays static as you drag the formula, minus the day of their birthday, and then put the dollar sign in front of the B so that that column stays static. Close that off and divide that by 365, which is how many days there are in the year. So when Rose was born, she was 0 years old. That makes sense. So now I can drag this formula down and it'll tell me how old people were when this happened. So Felix and Gray, which are Rose's younger siblings, and Tazetta, they're all her younger siblings. So this lets me know that Felix and Gray are 7 years younger than Rose, and Tazetta is 13 years younger than Rose. And then Xander and Leto, who are two other characters in the book, are born relatively close to each other, and they're around 5.5 years older than her. So then I can try to configure a few things. Like, for example, I want to anchor this to when the book starts. And I know that I want Rose to be more than 30 years old. So I can fiddle around with this a little bit. Let me try. I know it has to be in the summer. So let's do like 6 to I'm just gonna put a placeholder in here. So 1090 as an example. And if you take this formula and put this in here, you'll see that based on this date and when Rose was born, she would be 18 years old if that's the current date. And I want her to be older than that, so I'm gonna add a few more years on here. And that puts us at 31. If you drag this formula down again, you'll see how old everyone is at the start of the book. So Rose is 31, Felix and Gray are 24, Tezes is 17, and then Xander and Leto are 36, turning 37 shortly, later in the year. So that's it. That'll help me chart out what is happening now, how old are the characters now, and then what's happening relative to now and the past. So let's do another exercise. I have Victoria, which is their parents. In order to figure out how old I wanted her to be when she had Rose, I had to do some math. Initially, I made her way too young. Like it didn't make any sense. So for example, I wrote that she was born in like 60. And I was like, she can't be 12 when she had Rose. So I gave her a little bit more years. So 16, that's still really young. I wanted her to have been a young mother, to kind of play on to some of the maturity issues that she has. And then you can kind of see, like, from there, how old was she when she had her subsequent children. And let's see. I can put things into the past as well. So I charted out when Xander's grandparents died as an example. You can drag the formula back and it tells you that it was 11 years before he was born. Sorry, it was like, is that right? Yeah, so it was 11 years before he was born. So let's do another example. I have a character named Putty, who is Rose's childhood friend who disappears when they're 15. So I added a line for Putty, and I needed to chart out when they disappear. Appears. And you can cheat with this. So I know I want it to happen when they're around 15 or they are 15 years old. So I can do this plus 15 times 365. And it spits out a date. Let me drag these formulas over. So this is when they're exactly 15. I want it to happen during the summer. So I'm gonna just add a little bit more time here. So I'm gonna fast forward this to June 1st of the next year. So June 1st, 1091. Whoops, not a formula. So June 1st, 1091, they're still 15. Rose was 19 at the time, yada, yada. So this helps me figure out also how long ago certain events were. So here, if I want to calculate how long ago did Putty disappear, that was 12 years ago. So this helps me make references to, for example, like Rose had a friend that disappeared over a decade ago, or Victoria was only 16 when they had Rose, or like, let's say I chart out when Rose started to work at the Han Apothecary. I can say that, again, she started to work there 5 years ago. It just kind of helps me figure out the longevity of certain events and relationships, so on and so forth. Rose has an ex. I chart out when they broke up. And then for Xander and Lino, I kind of put them separately here because they're a different group of people within the plot. So these are people who come over from another country to Kuri, which is where Rose is from. And I want to chart out things like how much older is Xander's sister than Xander, like their friends, different relatives, people on their side of the universe. But yeah, so that is how I like to chart out and keep track of events that happened before the start of the book and how old people were when various different things happen, and how I like to kind of gauge and play around with the relative ages of people between each other. Anyway, let's hop over to how I keep track of the events that are happening past the opening of the book. So here I have a layout of things that are happening in Act 1. So I know that the book starts on a certain day. So here is a made-up day, 6/2/1103. And then I also knew that I wanted Rose to have 10 days to pay off this debt that her brothers accrue. So it's going to be a day after solstice, 10 days after the start of the book. So I have a line for that, and all I had to do was take the day of the start of the book and add 10 days. And then here, I have a formula that calculates how many days has it been since the start of the book for each line. And then this column calculates how many days has it been from the event before. Formulas got messed up here, so let me fix that. Let me drag that down again. So yeah, so it's been 1 day since solstice, 10 days since the start of the book. So here, I just filled it in with different events that happen in between when the debt is due and when the book starts. So for example, I knew that Rose needed to meet her mother at some point, and I wanted to introduce some conflict where she thinks that her mother is ignoring her message to meet for a few days. And I also wanted to show a part of Rose's personality where she's a little passive. She works really hard. She knows how to get stuff done, but she also doesn't necessarily like conflict, and she also procrastinates a lot. So I needed that to happen within the 10 days and make space for the events that have to happen after her confrontation with her mother. So I was like, okay, let's say she leaves the ribbon, which is their communication device. She will tie a ribbon to a tree to let her mother know that she wants to talk to her, like 2 days after the start of the book. And then their mother neglects to reach out to her for 3 days, which kind of forces her, other things happen, but she's basically forced to go confront her mother in person because they only have 10 days to pay this debt off, and already 5 days have passed. So then these are the other things that happen, and then I can carry this through for the rest of the book. So I can keep track of again, how many days have passed since the start of the book, how many days have passed since different events have happened. And you can use different formulas too, like add additional formulas. So let's say I want to keep this clean. Like I want to know how many days it's been since the start of the book, but I also want to, so there's a part, let me see if it's hidden here. Actually, no. So you can add different formulas too. So let's say, I want to know what happened since the start of the book. I want to know how many days have passed since the start of the book and how many days have passed since different events in a given act. But I want to start clean for Act 2. In my Act 2, basically Rose leaves to another country. So I want to keep track of how long has Rose been in that country. I would just add another column here and have a formula saying like how many days since. So instead of days since start, I might say days since Act 2 start. Oops. So I'll say days since Act 2 start, and the formula that I would use, so let's say this is Act 2. Act 2, arrive in Marugna, and let's say it takes them, like she leaves and it takes like 16 days to get there as an example, or let's add even more, 21 days to get there after she leaves. Then I can have a formula in here that just says how many days has it been since the beginning of Act 1, and I'll keep this cell static by putting these dollar signs. And then let's say, let's say that like a month in, I want there to be some sort of dinner. So dinner, and I'm gonna add 32 days. Is that a plus? Yes. Then when I drag this formula down, it should say 32. But I can still track how long it's been since the start of the book for all of these as well, and how many days it's been since the prior event. So it's been 31 days since the start of the book when Rose arrives in Marugna, and then 63 days afterwards when they have this dinner, but it's only been 32 days since she arrived in Marugna in the beginning of Act 2. All right, so that's it for today. Hopefully that made some sense to someone out there. Thank you for watching, and please let me know if this was at all helpful, and how do you keep track of the timelines in your book and the events that have happened before your plot began? And then until next time, bye.